So welcome back. Good afternoon, everyone. We are now starting the workshop 2 of our conference today. I am very excited and also honored to share the stage with our mentors and mentees from Southeast Asia. The focus of our discussion today is the Southeast Asian perspective in women's rights. On my left, we have mentor Pon Pawi, and mentee, and then on her left is the mentor, Professor Wanapa. And then on my right, I have Professor Bernard from the Philippines and mentee Marla. We are also joined by our distinguished members, mentors and mentees from Timor-Leste, Cambodia, and Indonesia, as well as Cambodia, Indonesia, and Timor-Leste. Okay. So before we will start off our presentation with our participants from Timor-Leste. Nizio, are you ready for your presentation? You can share your screen with us.
Okay, I'm sharing now.
So Renegio Sura Serias Mura de Carvalho is from Timor-Leste. He is involved as a communication and data unit coordinator at Asociación Tegalpa-Ita, ACPIT, in Timor-Leste. So before we start off, how are we going to do our presentations today? We'll have Timor-Leste and then Cambodia to present, and then right after that, comment from their mentors. And then after that, we'll proceed with the remaining 3 countries. First with all of the mentees, and then followed by all the comments from our mentors. And then finally, we will open the floor for any questions we have available. Nizio, if you're ready, you can go ahead and start.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. Okay, thank you for the floor. Yes, my name is René de Carvalho. I'm very glad to participate in this forum. And today's forum, I will talk about healing the unseen wounds, the importance of the reparations to women of conflict-related sexual violence in Timor-Leste from 1974 till 1999. So, for today's, I will talk about a bit of context of Timor-Leste, about the conflict-related sexual violence in Timor-Leste's case, and moving forward to the transformative reparations in Timor-Leste. For today's, I will maybe the objective of yes.
We don't see your PPT though. Okay. Sorry to cut you off.
I'm just sharing it. Wait. Share screen.
There, you can.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
You can put it on presentation mode, please.
Is it good right now?
Yes, but if you could show it on presentation mode, that would be perfect.
Yeah, I'm already showing you in presentation mode. Is it good?
Let's see. It's still not showing on the presentation mode though. But you can carry on.
Mauricio, if I allow, so the PPT is on there, but could you click the presentation mode on bottom of your PPT?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just clicking it, but I don't know what happened.
We have your PPT here with us. Would you like us to present it? And then just give
Yeah,
us okay.
it's better.
Okay. And also, may we remind, so this is going to be jam-packed for a couple of hours. We have 5 presenters and 5 mentors at the same time. So may we remind all of our mentees to limit their presentations within 10 to 15 minutes, so we can accommodate questions and answers towards the end of this session. Lizio, you can start.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you very much. On today's, I will talk about the healing the unseen wounds, the importance of the reparations to women of conflict-related sexual violence in Timor-Leste from 1974 till 1999. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. For the context of Timor-Leste, can you go back to the slide of context of Timor-Leste? Okay. Timor-Leste is located in Southeast Asia. Timor-Leste has endured a long-standing colonialization from Portuguese colonizations, and also in 1942, on 20th February, the Japanese military also invaded Timor-Leste, or in Timor Portuguese Timor at that time. And just from additional informations, there were also the issue of comfort women in Timor-Leste and some places in Timor-Leste. And after the Japanese withdrawal and after the World War II, the Portuguese come back again and rule again in Timor-Leste until the 1974. The Carnation Revolution happens in Portuguese and gives all the territory the rights to self-determination, and also they're starting in establishing political party. There were Fratellin, there were UDT, and there were Apodeti. Those parties has a different point of view towards independence. Some wants direct independence, some wants to federate with Portugal, and some wants to integrate to Indonesia. After this, in 1975, there was a civil conflict in internal Timor-Leste. It cost 2,000 lives. Civil conflicts. After the civil conflicts, there were a proclamation of independence in 28th of November 1975. And a week after, the Indonesian military invaded Timor-Leste in 7th of December 1975, and it lasts until 1999, during the 24 years. So, during the invasion of Indonesian military, mass human rights abuses or mass human rights violations happens in Timor-Leste. In CBR reports, it's estimated that 100,000 to 200,000 Timorese people dies, with the 985,000 human rights violations happens in Timor-Leste. And some other current registrations by the Ministry of Combatant and Veterans in Timor-Leste through Umalisan, the Secret House of Timor Society, they registered more than 200,000 died during the occupations. So in this time, what case of sexual conflict-related sexual violence emerged in CIVR? They are documented 853 cases. It's included rape, it's included sexual slavery, and it's included gang rapes and whatsoever that related to the sexual violence. And after that, after the CAVR concluded its report, some NGOs struggling to document it more, the victims of the conflict-related sexual violence, and they documented 300 more women that suffered from sexual violence, and only 8 of them give their testimony during of CAVR time, plus 65 plus children that born out of sexual violence. So the majority cases happen because of those women are related to the combatant or the combatant in the jungle or in the wood. And in another cases, this sexual violence happens when there are some uprisings happens, like in Maravia 1980, where the uprisings happens. There were lots of women that when the volunteer, the forces that fight for liberation, they withdraw to the jungle, and those women are the targets or the potential targets to being violated by the Indonesian military. And from the slide, I want to introduce you about the context of women that endured sexual violence during the conflict time. They were facing many stigmas because of what did happens, social marginalizations. They are poor in physical and psychological health because of those sexual violence they endured during the time. It's become more, they have become more traumatic and become more quite hard in their life, and economic hardships because of the stigma, because of the social marginalizations and the poverty of the Timor-Leste. It became really hard for those women that endured the sexual violence during this time to be more productive or to be more improve their daily life in this time. Next slide, please. So in my presentation, I will collaborate about the context of the sexual violence and the reparations in Timor-Leste's context. And this time I will talk about reparations as a framework in transitional justice to seek or to deal with what happens in mass human rights violations in each context. And I will apply it to Timor-Leste's context. So the transitional, it consists with uncovering the truth, holding the perpetrators accountable, providing victims and survivors with reparations, and ensuring access to education and economic opportunity, and in this framework will justify that the development or what the really needs of those women that endured sexual violence during the conflict times. So the reparation may consist of the compensations. Can you move to the next slide? I will put the this is about the reparation justifications. Some I quoted from some materials or some articles. So, the concept of reparation is rooted in the idea of restoring their dignity and promoting healing for individuals and communities affected by the mass human rights violations. So this is just the justification of the reparations for the context. Next, please. So this is what happened for reparations in Timor-Leste. In Timor-Leste, they were in CAVR time, or the period for 2001 to 2005, they are conducted urgent reparations to the most vulnerable victims. The the urgent reparations consist of physical and psychological help to those women, and physical and psychological to those women to endure sexual violence during the time. So there were only 196 women that received the urgent reparations from the severe time, and and those women are not only women that have facing the sexual violence, but also some of them are the relative of the victims that die or that disappears during the time. So in 2005, after the Savior concluded its reports, so the civil society taking its role in fulfilling the gaps between this time. So they're pushing more for the reparations to be implemented by the government. So in 2009, they established an organization called National Victim Associations that consists of all the victims throughout the territory of Timor-Leste. From this, they prepared a draft law and submitting this draft law to the draft law to the government to the parliamentary, and the draft law had been denied by the parliament because of the lack of the will of the political inside. The draft law urges the CVR and CTF reports, urges the government to implement the program preparations. And you can see when the next slide, I put it in the circle. The reparations is intended for not all the Timorese people, but it's concluded symbolic reparations were all the victims, but the symbolic and materials reparation to the most vulnerable victims. And move to the next slides. When we see the state perceptions on the reparations, the former prime minister and the former president of Timor-Leste, he stated in 2014 that the government sees no need for the reparations law and that the government does not have the financial resources to compensate all the victims of atrocities. In CVR, emerged the reparation not only for the compensation in form of cash, but it should be the holistic approach, not only the compensation, but the acknowledgement or the recognitions of what happened to those victims during that time. One important thing is that the states of Timor-Leste always monopolize the narrative of the struggle to the male virgin. Only those males that fight in the jungles, right now they call them veterans. The state monopolized these virgins to the national liberations, and also the states just seeks reconciliation with Indonesia. In some cases, the barriers on implementing the can you move to the next slides? The barriers on implementing the reparations as a full context of Timor-Leste. One thing is a political will of the government, of those leaders that doesn't want to address to this problem. One thing, because of in the Savior report itself stated that not only the Indonesian member are the perpetrators, but also the Timorese political leaders. Some of them are also perpetrators. This some kinds of the barriers on how hard to implement reparation in Timor-Leste. And another case that the state denies the suffering of conflict-related sexual violence. The state doesn't see this context as important as some another context, because the major resources allocated to the veterans in 2022, the annual budget of total 3.2 billion and 1.6 billion are allocated to the veterans. The veterans just a small amount of the population in Timor-Leste. And another thing is the vulnerability in accessing informations, because a lot of these women are living in the rural area, so it's quite kind of hard to them to access the informations. and also about the impunity of the perpetrators. As I mentioned before, the perpetrators now not only the part of Indonesia, but some perpetrators are Timorese leaders, are Timorese political leaders as well. Can you move to the next slide, please? So this is, I want to showcase the differences about the veterans and the victims in Timor-Leste context. In 2005, they established a dedicated museum to the veterans. In 2006, there was a law for veterans of creation of National Combatant Council. From this council, they opened the registrations to the veterans, so the state can compensate them in money, in monthly, and this have some different category for the veterans. Some can be compensated to $1,000 per month, and some of the in some cases, and right now, Timor-Leste's ninth constitutional government, and in this government, they consist of one minister and one state secretary. So that looking only for the veterans. So you can see the differences. And the marginalization of victims, bill submitted on repression law in 2008 got denied in 2012. And the justifications I have mentioned before, the former prime minister and former president of Timor-Leste sees no need for the repressions to establish in Timor-Leste. They established National Victim Association without their struggle, and no state intervention, or no state don't help them. And the establishment of the CNC, the government institution that looking out for the lesson learned from the CAVR report, but they are no reparation mandate to the CNC itself, these public institutions. Can you next? So this is like I want to cross-checking about the reparations tool it's a tool of transformation for Timor-Leste, because the idea of the reparation is acknowledged to pass injustice, to attempt to make amends by the providing service or form or redress. And the reparation can be good too in dealing with the root problem of sexual violence against Timor-Leste, not only in the past context, but it can be as lesson learned to Timorese society in this nowadays time. And the restoration of dignity as a woman, because those women they're not only demanding the compensation in form of cash, but the acknowledgement of the state of what they have suffered during the time, because those women also plays a big role in the clandestine movement, and within this role it can be achieved to the independence of Timor-Leste from Indonesia, and to turn the system of social constructions that women always been subjugated by men and seen as second class in society, because in National Day they're always a narrative that only male that fight in the jungle and bring Timor-Leste to restore its independence, not women, only men. I think with this concept it can be a balancing narrative to both sides, to both veterans and to both victims, to both male and female. Next, please. And what are we demanding the most by the victims? Firstly, about that not acknowledgement by the states. States should recognize what they have been endured. And another thing is that restore the dignity of the survivors of the victims. And one and most important things also in context of reparation is satisfactions of victims, of those women that face sexual violence. With this thing, it can be the balance. It can be a way to balance in the narrative and tackle the social structural justice, and that's happening in Timor-Leste. And can you next, please? Is to be concluded. What should be done? What should be done by Timorese society or Timorese leader is to recognize our past, to become a lesson learned for us to reinvent our future, and most important thing also is to value those that suffer from the consequences that happen during this time. I think thank you so much for the flow. This is my presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lijo, from Timor-Leste. So he presented the importance of repatriation to women of conflict-related sexual violence in East Timor, or in Timor-Leste as a general. Unfortunately, at this point, despite of all the efforts of the government or the citizens to provide reparations, one of the major challenges is the acknowledgement of the government of these issues. And so, as a conclusion, we have to recognize the past to become lessons for our future. Our next presenter is from Cambodia. Krel?
Hello.
Yes, so Krel Ratana from Cambodia. She is a group mentor and project implementer for the Future Sense Foundation in Cambodia. Krel, if you could share your PPT.
Okay, yeah. Everyone see my slide?
Yes, and if you could project it on presentation mode.
Yeah.
I think thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. So my name is Ratana, and I will present you about Cambodian women participations in peace and reconciliations. So this is my content. The first one is about introduction. The second one is about women after Khmer Rouge, and the third one is about Cambodian women's participation in peace and reconciliations through United Nations or UN, through governments, and through NGO. And the last one is about conclusions. So before we go into the topic, I would like to provide you a general introduction. It's about the women. So the women is represent a strong link in the chain that support the most vulnerable member of the society. As we know, women are really easy to get the as the vulnerable. So that's the reason why women understands about the suffering of the vulnerable member of the society. That's the reason why women always help and support all the vulnerables in the societies. And the second one is about women is perseverance and kind, which will take their role beyond the home as they plays an important role in the peace building process. And therefore the UN's like it is the mandatory for the UN to look into the overall aspects of the peace building, include female as a case. So if you want to know deep, so get through together about this point. So this I will talk about the women's after Khmer Rouge. So Cambodian women have been agents of peace since the end to the conflicts in 1979 through participations in the ECCC. So the full name of ECCC is the Extraordinary Chambers in the Court of Cambodia. So this court were established to bring to trial censors, leader of Democratic Cambodia or Khmer Rouge, and those most responsible of crime during the period from 1975 to 1979. And all the women who joined in the court were the victims. Some of them lost their sons, their husband, relatives, siblings, and so on. And this boy from one of the participants in the court who lost her husband during Khmer Rouge regimes, and she said that I am very old now. My presentation today is for sake of the countries and the youth, the young generations, to end the unlawful thinkings and injustice. I witnessed before and during the democratic Cambodia of Khmer Rouge, so it will not set a bad precedent for the next generation. And in totally, women join in the ECCC are the key impact and also help a lot in the society even the past and now. And there's several reasons. The first one is women have contributed to fighting impunities and building trust on the court system at that time. And the second one is women are contributing to the better understanding of legal proceeding and to more just legal decision. And the last one is women have established the trust about the democratic regime for the historical record, which have contributed to healings and rebuilding of trust within communities. And the next one is about the activities of women, not only women, also men and monks and nuns in the peace work that led by Brahma Kusananda. So in the purpose to bring the refugees home from Thailand, and in peace outreach effort in area formula controlled by the Khmer Rouge, and also encourage the Khmer Rouge to abandon their weapon as well. So this page is the new page of women to gain more power in the society or community. So this one is about CEDAW. So the full name of CEDAW is the convenience on eliminations of all form of discriminations against women. So under the on 1992, Cambodia also signed the CEDAWs, and under the CEDAWs, women are assertors of their civil rights and legal status in areas such as political participations, non-discrimination in education, employment, economics, and also the social activity as well. And this is an sample, the two women who joined in the political at the First National Assembly in 1993. So the first one is Her Excellency Dr. Inkonta Pavi. So she is the Minister of Women Affairs and Minister of Inter-Ministry Affairs. And the second one is Her Excellency Dr. Min Sam'at. So she is the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Assembly, Senate Relations and Inspections. So move to the next one is about the activities of women's participations in peace and reconciliation through UN or United Nations. So in 1993, Cambodia have currently become provider of peacekeepers under the United Nations umbrella. And since 2006, Cambodia has displayed nearly 7,900 peacekeepers to partake in the UN humanitarian, demining, and peacekeeping operations in 9 war-torn countries. And among 7,900 peacekeepers, there were 494 women. And this is the uniform of women peacekeeping in UN. And this event took place this year. This year on 21 February 2023. There is a woman-led Cambodian Union troop of the UN mission as well. Okay, so move on to the next one is about the activity of women through the government. So there's the Ministry of Cambodian. There's a lot of ministries. So in that also have the Ministry of Women Affairs. And it is a government ministry responsible for women affairs in the Cambodia, and also led by women. Her Excellency Dr. Inkontapavi. So these actions or this ministry can source like the women play very important roles to lead the ministry, and also there's a lot of activity that women do in the societies, not only lead. So this one is about the participations in the society. So this one is Her Excellency Dr. Kontapavi. So she joined in the ceremonies planning for the women to educate women to like some kind of educate women to have more active in the society, even politics, peace, and also social works. So let's move to the next point is about the NGO on non-government organization. So I raised this NGO up not to promote the name of or the NGO, but talk about the activity of women in this. So Cambodian women for peace. This one is there's a lot of activities of women, as you see.
Well, I think we can wrap it up. Do you have more slides to present?
So yeah, this one
Thank
is
you.
just the activities of women of the NGO, not much. So as you see, there's a lot of women joining. So last but not least, so this is the conclusions. So as we know, NVCs, they have women and girls now contribute to all developed sections of the country, working for the NGO and the government, private company, and so on. So that's it. That is all of my presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Krel. Round of applause, everyone. So Ms. Krel Ratana presented the roles of women, different stages of women in their society, from the traditional ones to essentially the peace builders and helping in rebuilding conflict-inflicted communities in their society. Thank you very much. Now we're moving on to the comments of the mentors. We'll have first Miss Hailey Kim, who is a peace building practitioner and research based in East Timor, and then followed by Miss Sek Sarom, who is also a peacemaker and peace educator, teaching at the Mayetra in Battambang.
Good afternoon. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we're good. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Would like to congratulate both of the presenters from Timor-Leste and Cambodia on the very interesting research and very important and also some difficult topics. My comments mainly will be on Timor-Leste because for the last couple of months we've been working together. Myself really enjoyed very much working together with Maori Negio. And I learned a lot, certainly. So thank you very much and congratulate again. He is actually a graduate student at the Timor-Leste's National University on Peace Studies, but also at the same time, he's working one of the civil society organization, closely working for and with the victims and survivors of the conflict-related sexual violence. So his insights offered today presentation is very important and valued. My comment is not all about where is lacking or on his presentation or research. Rather, I wanted to actually highlight some of the key points that require further reflection and consideration with our broader audiences. First, I wanted to actually reflect on reparation itself. What is a reparation and why it is necessary and important for justice? Because fundamentally, reparation is about the mechanism that is established through social consensus to address the injustice occurred in the past. However, reparation confronts, as also mentioned in his presentation, our mentees, it confronts many pragmatic and epistemic challenges, such as how to repair the damages. For example, the injustice occurred in the past. And are those damages and injustice even repairable? Because, for example, the sexual violence, how you can repair the injustice done to the people that times. And how to mobilize political support for the reparation is clearly articulated in the presentation earlier. There's a lot of political challenge. The leaderships, the state since the independence hasn't even recognized there are victims. And pretty much the narrative, the state's narrative focused on the heroes. Right? We have heroes for our achieving independence and sovereignty and liberty. And ultimately, I also wanted to pose a question, who owes reparation to whom? This is really challenging for especially Timorese cases because one of the arguments coming from the government why they cannot implement the state reparation is that the harm done to those victims are committed by the Indonesian military, and why the state Timor-Leste has to make a compensation or a reparation. So these are all serious, very practical, but also fundamentally very philosophical and moral challenges in implementing reparation. I think also it is important to hear what survivors and victims of Timor-Leste think reparation should be. Foremost, I think Mao didn't mention, but in his research, he actually listed this. So I encourage everybody to read if we have more time. Foremost, the victims and survivors of Timor-Leste says that the official recognition by states of their suffering, their presence in the struggle for liberty and their courage and resilience should be recognized. This is a fundamental in turning the long-standing and widespread social stigma and discrimination against the survivors and victims, as well as their children. Since independence, the Timor-Leste state has prioritized honoring the mostly male veterans of the resistance, and many female survivors feel they are forgotten and sidelined in the discourse of history making. In this regard, I want to highlight truth-telling is a part of reparation. I'm working at the UNESCO, and the UNESCO has been currently working on history and peace education initiative in Timor-Leste in partnership with the government of Timor-Leste and the Shega National Center. I mentioned briefly in the presentation, the Shega National Center is a public institution mandated to follow up the Truth and Reconciliation Commission implemented during 2002 and 2005. This is the presentation mentioned CABR. This is the acronym of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And then one of the activities of the initiative is to introduce the comprehensive and inclusive historical narratives to the school education. Why we are doing this? Because ultimately, what we're trying to achieve is that making a balanced narratives on history of Timor-Leste. And in this regard, I wanted to once again emphasize the efforts made by Timorese civil society organization, including the one the presenters is working with, the ACBIT, in filling the gap by the lack or slow action by the government in terms of creating the space for victims and survivors to speak out their stories. Lastly, I want to reflect on the what should be truly transformative reparation. The title of the presentation was the transformative reparation, and it could be not only repair at the individual level through the different means of like economic compensation or state recognition of individual suffering. Rather, it should be at the community and society level through changing attitude and behavior and perception of the members of society. In this sense, I agree that the reparation movement should be closely linked to the broader gender equality advocacy in the world as well as in Timor-Leste. One thing I wanted to actually clarify is that sexual violence is not only about women. As clearly mentioned in the international law, the victims are both men and female. And of course, proportionally, there are more women victims, victims of sexual violence. However, there are also cases male victims, like in Timor-Leste as well. So I encourage actually the presenter to look into this case as well, not only the female victims, but also male victims. Probably there must be more stigma attached to the males to speak out their experience in the society where the norms, the culture and customs not allow male to talk about this issue. So I highly encourage you to look at this case in this, the broader, conflict-related sexual violence in Timor-Leste. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Haley Kim, for your insightful comment. Ms. Sek? Ms.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon. Can you hear me here?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you to the presenters and for this session number 2 as well as this morning as well. And I've been fascinated and learning a lot about the problems and, like in the past. I come to the conclusion that war is not healthy, even though it's been passing on for generations and generations, but it is still a lot, like to heal. And Ratana, she's also presented a lighter, work a bit from this morning. It's quite heavy. And as you know, that Cambodia has passed through, the darkest histories in any mankind. We have done a lot of killings, and between our races in the past, like in the Khmer Rouge time. And I, just like Timor-Leste, I will have a few more added to Cambodian cases. Like Ratana has mentioned a lot, because this generation, her generation is the second generation after the Khmer Rouge. A lot has moved forward. So now we focus on how to get women into a spotlight. Like when we talk about the peace, first the peace accords in Paris in 1991. When you look at the pictures, when I look at the pictures of the people, even the representative from other countries who have to bring peace to Cambodia, and also with representations from Cambodia, they're all men. I couldn't see women in the picture frames of this historical picture, but if you look at the background, you see a lot of, like the wives, the mothers, the elite's family during that times. They're trying to bring all these men who've been fighting for many years to come to find peace, to bring peace to Cambodia. So in the background, we don't see the pictures of men, but in the historical picture, you will see a lot of men working on this. So I think you want to have like a future, a secure future, sustainable peace in the futures. It's very important and very crucial that women participations have to be highlighted. You have to bring more women into the spotlights. And what Ratana have presented, like they've been, like it's been, over underrated. Like a lot of Cambodians. Women have been working to bring peace through reconciliations, and now we also have a big numbers of women sending to through the peace keeping for the UNs and to bring peace, to do all kind of repairing in the countries that were bombarded or that were suffered by wars. So this is very crucial. That I think it's time now for us. For the countries in the regions, trying to promote, trying to highlight the works of women, and I think this is important. That's my input. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sek. I think we all agree that war is not healthy in any sense. With all of the social inequities we are experiencing at the moment, it could even be more, particularly the vulnerable fabrics of our society. Thank you very much, our first two presenters and mentors. Can you give them a round of applause, everyone? So now we're moving on to our one of our presenters from the Philippines. Marla is presenting from the Philippines, a student of international development studies at the University of the Philippines, Manila. Can we?
Good day, mabuhay. Thank you very much for having me. I'm honored to be able to present and participate in the current discourse on peace and women's rights on behalf of the Philippines. So when we were asked to select our topics regarding women's human rights and the current status of gender-based violence in our home, I wanted to contribute to the discussion by shedding light on a topic that doesn't only address the very valid struggles that come from direct violence and atrocities like war, but provide a lens that focuses on another form of lived violence that is far more hidden, but still just as persistent and prevalent in the lives of vulnerable women as a whole, especially in the Philippines. And this is the issue of structural violence in the form of social and economic inequalities. So, as we all know, structural violence refers to limitations that are embedded in society's social structures, which prevent an individual from meeting their basic needs. And the effects of these limitations are often mistaken as everyday struggles and thus often go unaddressed. So in my presentation, I aim to quickly thank you, illustrate the common struggles vulnerable Filipino women experience, most of which will be social and economic in nature. And after that, I'll go over their corresponding effects, what is currently being done, and how we can ultimately move forward. So vulnerable in this context refers to Filipino women who are economically insecure and are living in households whose total income falls below the poverty threshold, meaning that they struggle to afford the standard food and non-food requirements needed for a decent standard of living. And as it turns out, 10 million out of the 19.89 million Filipinos that have been counted as impoverished by the Philippine Statistics Authority just last 2022 were all women. So such a proportion makes up 52%, which is more than half of the impoverished population in the Philippines. And this is why the title of my presentation is called The Feminization of Poverty, which was a concept or a phenomenon that was coined to describe how more likely it is for women to experience poverty at a more exacerbated degree. And while the statistics to back up this phenomenon vary, it helped encourage policies to have a more gender-sensitive approach when it comes to alleviating poverty. So, among all the gender-specific limitations that were researched, the concept of the double burden was the one that was most prominent among the experiences of these impoverished women in the Philippines. So what is the double burden? Just to quickly explain, the double burden is a balancing act that women must face between employment and the unpaid care work they are traditionally expected to perform at home. Unpaid care work refers to daily activities and personal care responsibilities that sustain our lives and health, like cooking, cleaning, childcare, elder care, and other chores like water collection. So in the Philippines, surveys done by NGOs such as Oxfam Pilipinas and other research institutes reveal that such tasks are shouldered disproportionately by women in the household, along with their other tasks related to their paid work. And this balancing act is often done by women of all classes in the Philippines, but the effects of it are more exacerbated when you are in an economically insecure position. So why is this? If we look at the National Household Care Survey conducted by Oxfam Pilipinas and other feminist partner organizations in 2021, we can see that although women all over the Philippines spend approximately an hour more than men doing both care work and paid work, they still spend an hour less than them on leisure. And by leisure, I'm not just referring to recreational works. Leisure time refers to hours allotted for personal hygiene, education. So not only do they, by this measure, do a larger amount of work, but they actually receive lesser returns or pay for it as well. And this is compounded by a lack of time to invest in developing their human capital. So this makes them less economically independent or empowered to access other opportunities that can help them out of poverty. So to add to this burden, impoverished Filipino women who are employed often find themselves in lines of informal work. So there are 6.6 million Filipino female informal workers, and this is according to the Global Network of Women Peace Builders. And they all have limited opportunities for organization representation, and they are inadequately covered by social protection, especially in times of illness, disability, work, injury, maternity, unemployment, and old age. So with all this in mind, what are the effects of such issues? So the first one is low intergenerational mobility. So their economic struggles become chronic due to a lack of access to opportunities that can help them develop marketable skills, which can be used to acquire higher paying jobs with more social benefits. So in essence, the double burdens limitations on a woman makes it something of a poverty trap. Second are health complications, such as sustained physical injuries, which are a result of continued intense work and, as stated earlier, minimal leisure time. So when compounded with the inequalities that are in the healthcare system, this makes it difficult for women to avail of the treatment of such injuries. And third, of course, is widening disparities in gender. Of course, these economical limitations makes it hard for them to sort of reach the same economic independence that I would say men have. So overall, in spite of all these sacrifices that these women have, make the perception of care work in the Philippines remains undervalued. And they're often regarded as menial tasks, which are to be, relegated to just women and children in spite of their role in sustaining the economy. So one local example I can provide for this is actually the wives of fisher folk in Zambales, Philippines. Although they regularly perform tasks such as mending nets, budgeting household income, taking care of children, or selling their husband's catch in the market, their presence in the fishing industry remains unaddressed, and they are excluded from fishing registries in their hometown, which deprives them of government-supported social benefits. So when typhoons hit like Yolanda or Haiyan, which was in 2014, they were largely left unsupported. So with all this said, in spite of the fact that Philippines ranks 7th globally to have closed gender gaps, it remains that the female labor force participation rate is still 47.6%. And it begs the question of whether this is a gap by personal choice or structural limitation. And this is not to say that a woman should only feel empowered when she has a career in business, but rather she is empowered when she has the choice and the means to pursue a career if she so desired to. So with that said, what can be done to help economically empower these vulnerable women so they do have that choice? So the Philippine Commission on Women, along with a few partner NGOs in the Philippines, proposed a 5Rs action model in 2021 that they believe summarizes the types of movements that are needed in order to achieve this kind of positive change. So first is the R of reduction. And right, as it was stated earlier, women are experiencing a poverty of time. And the reduction basically seeks to tackle alleviating labor-intensive unpaid care tasks to create more hours that can be spent participating in the political, social, and economic spheres of life. And the way that the Philippine government has approached this goal was by providing numerous acts and laws such as the Solo Parents Welfare Act and Early Childhood Care and Development Act, which simultaneously try to aid the early stages of parenthood by providing childcare centers and benefits to alleviate the double burden contributed by the side of childcare. Additionally, the Philippines has made the Philippine Commission on Women, which reviews, evaluates, and recommends measures to ensure the full integration of women for economic, social, and cultural development at national and regional levels. Second is recognition. So as it was stated earlier, care work is still undervalued in the Philippines. So the recognition seeks to tackle the importance of supporting and investing in the care economy through government policies and budget allocations. And though we have some laws already instated regarding this area, the Philippines is still in need of better data collection and knowledge that more accurately represents the real amount of work that women do. How can you appreciate something if you don't know that it exists? So often in national surveys, because the double burden creates a blur between the informal work, leisure time, and care work performed at home by women, whenever they categorize themselves in these surveys, they only say that they are housewives. And they also omit the intensive work that they perform alongside these duties, which leaves them deprived of support or help. Moving on, we have the R's of reward and representation. Reward basically states that women should have the ample social benefits such as livable wages, pensions, and cares benefits. And the Philippines has attempted to cover this by instituting laws that look after the welfare of women in terms of safe and equitable treatment in jobs, like a Domestic Workers Act, as well as a Safe Spaces Act, which these both try to eliminate domestic violence that could happen between an employer and the worker. Then we have the representation, which, of course, whenever we want to create policies in which women's issues are genuinely tackled, we want the people themselves to be able to be a part of this process. And of course, that's where representation comes in. And the Philippines actually has this Magna Carta, the Magna Carta of Women, which is basically the local translation of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And it's a comprehensive women's human rights law that seeks to eliminate discrimination through the recognition and protection of the rights of Filipino women in marginalized sectors. And the Magna Carta of Women has done a lot to regulate or put pressure on the government to include these women in the policymaking in government. And lastly, we have redistribution. So if you are double burdened, if you're carrying more than you can manage, of course, you want to share that weight or that load with somebody else. And the redistribution part basically states that it wants to encourage a more equitable division of tasks and care work between men and women in the households to help alleviate the double burden. And in this research, I noticed that there weren't a lot of policies that helped with this, but currently, we are pushing to House a bill that seeks to increase the days for paternity leave so as to effectively support the mother and their newborn during childbirth. Previously, it was only 7 days for paternity leave, while women would have 2 or 3 months. So with all that said, what improvements can still be made with these policies? So we need more extensive evaluation and enforcement of the laws, as well as financing and budgeting. So I stated a lot of policies, a lot of laws that the Philippine government has implemented. But in spite of this good legislative environment, there remains still a weak implementation with insufficient budgetary allocations, inadequate care infrastructure, and most of all, a lack of human resources to properly execute such laws, which basically negates this legal framework that the Philippines has made to support their women. And we can help push for stronger implementation, of course, through increased advocacy. And lastly, just to conclude everything, inequality remains to be one of the largest barriers in achieving true and inclusive economic growth in the Philippines. And gender disparity is only one facet of the inequality our country is currently experiencing. Of course, we can't just look at it through the lens of gender. We have to consider class. And even with that, alleviating the double burden through the 5 Rs mentioned earlier can help reduce issues of chronic poverty in the Philippines. Solving issues of violence requires us digging into the structural and cultural roots of society at a deeper level. And at the end of the day, change must begin at the grassroots level in the most personal areas of our lives before growing outwards. And this calls for continued promotion of gender-sensitive lenses by which we can enact policies and laws. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marla. So she essentially provided the realities of women experiencing in the Philippines, particularly the double burden where they have to work and then at the same time provide house chores that are not paid. Although there are statistics showing that there is a good amount of gender disparity, but at the end of the day, statistics doesn't show the reality and the ultimate number or the all of what's included in the statistics. There were laws already ongoing. However, some of them are not being implemented, thus requires action, particularly on reinforcement and increased advocacy, as she mentioned. Thank you, Marla. Now we're moving on to our participant, Fitra from Indonesia. Fitra, can you hear us? Do we have Fitra? Fitra? So if we don't have Fitra on the other end, and we can proceed with our Thai delegate. So they could be their last, the last presenter. Fitra? No? Right, so we're moving on. We have with me on my left team, the delegates from Thailand. Our presenter is a research Porn Pawi, who is a researcher and a graduate from the School of International Affairs from Chiang Mai University, Thailand. Go ahead.
Hello everyone, I am Honbawi from Thailand, and
Can we have the PPT up for the Thailand delegate?
thank you. Nice to meet all of you again. And yeah. Okay. Today I'm very excited and honored to be here, and I'm so grateful for that I can share our grandmothers and mothers story from my Pua district, which is my hometown. So today I'm going to make a presentation about women's resilience in the post-COVID era in a case of Pua women, Nan province. So COVID-19 pandemic had an impact on all people, regardless of race, religion, age, or gender. However, the level of the impact varies according to factors such as individual conditions and life circumstances. As you can see on the presentation, there's some of our interviewees. They are our grandmother and also mothers who work in informal sector, and some of them also work in formal sector as government employees, but they take as a street vendor as their side job. For the vulnerable groups, the elderly and women, they were especially impacted. If we talk about like self-recovery or the resiliencies, it will have the follow question that, so how they will recover themselves? For Pua district is one of the most rural areas in country. Because of this, self-recovery in the post-COVID era has significant limitations. And the limitations will disproportionately affect women and the elderly, who play an important role in their family life. So, okay. So, we said the questions for the study is what factors or obstacles that affect the ability or resilience of women in Pua district to efficiently recover in the post-COVID era. So our studies focuses on the obstacles preventing the women of Pua district in both the formal and informal sectors from self-recovery and coping with the crisis in the post-COVID era. And our objectives are, the first one is to use a women's rights perspective to explore the obstacles preventing the women of Pua from recovering. And the second one is to describing the results, whether or not the women will be able to exhibit their resiliency or recover in the post-COVID era. For our study, use qualitative research with a case study approach and in-depth interview to collect the data, which is consisted of 13 women in Pua district who work in both the formal and informal sector as company employees, temporary employees, and government employees, and also street vendor, vegetable vendors, farmers, and home-based or domestic workers. And in the interview, we focus on three main topics, which is consisting of, the first is problems and burdens they face during the pandemic. And the second one is how they continue to cope with the crisis in the post-COVID era. The last one is the factors or obstacles that made it more difficult to recover as women. For after using focus topics from interviews, we divided the problems they face into groups which were common and unique problems. For common problems, we divide in 3 issues, which is economic issues, health issues, and family issues. For economic, both of women who are formal workers and also informal workers have more expenses during the pandemic. But at the same time of the emerging of inflation, the high cost of stuff or they unaffordable to the COVID protective equipment, such as facial masks, hand sanitizer, or COVID-19 test kit, etc. While they could not get to work regularly and get money, and being unable to support their family members to live sufficiently. One of the interviewees have forced to quit her job in Bangkok by her husband to find another job in Pua State, but the salary in Pua District was decreased more than half compared with her old job. For health issues, including mental health, a vast majority of women interviewed have congenital disease, and the pandemic also increased the risk of infection and being health problems, not only physical health, but their mental health too, because of the stress from domestic violence by their husband was the problems too, and also the anxiety for losing a job or cannot sell their products because market closure. For family issues, some of women interviewed, they faced the domestic violence after her husband became alcoholics, both during the pandemic and in the post-COVID era. For moreover, some of them were also the breadwinners of family, because they were divorced widows and, or being the primary caregivers of elderly parents and children. Okay, and so for the unique problems, it consisted of, the first one is about social security or the access to state welfare of government's financial support scheme. For informal workers, they have a limited access to welfare or social security protection compared to the formal workers who have joined Thai social security scheme that Thai government also have a relief measure to provide financial support to employees and employees who were registered. And they also have a cash transfer programs for people who don't use a social registry. But however, this program, the applicants are required to go online and access the website to submit applications, which limits applicants to those with internet access. The next one is about severe consequences. In this point, I will, I mean that for informal sector or informal workers, they face more severe consequences because of their incomes. It very depends on the workplace. Like for street vendor, they could not sell the things, or also farmer, they could not sell their products because of market closure. So most of the time they see more severe consequences. And the next one is debt. Women interviewed were inevitably in debt during the pandemic, as well as in the post-pandemic, particularly for informal workers, because a losing of money. So they have to fight for financial resources to support their daily life and to support their family members. So for the next focus topic of the interview is about coping mechanism. So how they continue to cope with the crisis in the post-COVID era. So we found that the first one is about loans from government-owned financial institutions, especially for street vendors and farmers. In the pandemic era, they could not sell their products, so it makes them lose money, and they don't have choices to find a financial resource that like I mentioned before. So loaning money is one of their choice. And in this case, there are two government-owned financial institutions they can access, which is Government Saving Bank and Bank for Agriculture and Agricultural Cooperatives. With they offer the loan money for in a less collateral. And the second is a frugal behavior and rely on their own homegrown vegetable. The third one is rely on their savings during the lockdown and even after lockdown. The fourth is finding a second job and or new marketplace, for such as some of them becoming a domestic worker, or they're recycling for money, or becoming a street vendor as her side job. And okay, and the last focus topic of the interviews is factors or obstacles that disproportionately affected women. We found that the first one is the limitations in job opportunity. Women in poor districts still have more limited job opportunity compared with those who live and work in urban areas. Many of jobs available require male rather than female employees. The second is receiving unfair wages. For poor district or non-province, we have a provincial minimum wage rate is 328 Thai baht per day. But one of our women interview, she received less than the minimum wage, which is only 250 baht per day at her second job. The third one is double care burdens. And the fourth is a lack of education and skill. Most of women interviewed, especially the elderly, they did not have any access to education. So they could not read nor write, and lack of the knowledge of utilize internet and many technological devices. Due to this lack of access to education and technical skills, so their job opportunity is limited further. So moving on, this part is about discussion. The information gathered from the women's interview have emphasized that it is impossible to ignore that the women of poor were disproportionately impacted due to the pandemic and faced disproportionate obstacles to their recovery in the post-COVID era. And this study also used the concept of patriarchal framework to determine that the rights of women of poor are still restricted and not being promoted as they should be, because moreover, being an women, poor district, women in poor district, they also have a breadwinner and have a care burdens in caregiver of elderly parents that I mentioned before. In family, if they have a son, the son will be the person who have the opportunity to get education and get a good job in another developed areas, and who is sister have to stay home and didn't have a opportunity to get education, and they have to stay home to take care of their elderly parents. And also, poor district has characteristic of both an agricultural and aging society. So most of women interviewed, they did not have access to education, and vast majority of the skill come from practical knowledge from their lived experiences. And moreover, women have received an equal wages when compared to men, as well as taking on the care burden in domestic workloads as implicitly defined as a women's responsibility. In addition, for government policies and measures during the pandemic, and also in the post-COVID era, they do not take a gender into account. The measure mandating people to stay home inevitably increase the workloads of women at home and family members. Caretaking is their implicitly defined responsibility. And moving on to the implications and recommendations, the first one I will talk about technology. This one is one of the obstacles in accessing to state welfare. A lot of women are unable to access this opportunity because of the lack of education and also technology. So I think this one, the government should create a system that everyone capable with and make the technology appropriate to the public and being a user-friendly, sorry. The next one is microfinance. This one is one of the mechanisms to reduce limitations or barriers of women accessing in money loans, especially in the post-COVID era. The women entrepreneurs, street vendors, or farmers, they face the challenges. So the government should promote a financial support scheme to be easy access without a collateral or low interest. About state welfare, it should be easy access for everyone without any complicated procedures or limitations. And state welfare should be sufficient to be able to live and affordable in every month, especially for elderly people and people who are unable to use or access into the internet. In Thailand, for elderly people, they have the welfare. It's a very it's a very small amount, a low amount to afford their daily life. And the next one is policy to empower women. I think the policy to empower women and providing opportunity to become more self-dependent or increasing the job opportunity, especially in the remote areas, supporting entrepreneur or company in providing job employment along with the skills training that suitable for the job, and also supporting women's entrepreneurship as well. And the last one is about values in society. According to aging society, which forces people in working ages leave their home to find another job opportunities in big city. As same as for young generation, I really hope that government should create values and encourage the ideas of gender equality to reducing women's barrier in society. And this is all my presentation today, and thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pornpawi. So in essence, what she talked about is that, you know, the women's resilience during post-COVID. She discussed about key issues that the women have experienced, particularly economic issues, where there is an decreased in their income or to no income at all. Health issues, which resulted to multiple comorbidities, such as hypertension, infections, as well as mental health. And also domestic violence has become there's a very high prevalence of domestic violence during the pandemic. She suggested, though, to empower women, particularly in improving their education, skills training, and also increased women's opportunity to perform roles in the society. Thank you very much. Now, before we move on, do we have the last presenter from Indonesia? Unfortunately, I don't see them online because... Fitra, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. Okay. Do you want to show your slides? Currently, Indonesia experiencing heavy rains at the moment, and so they're their internet connection is kind of also affected. It's very unstable. They were here actually since the beginning of this program. They've been in and out due to the connection issues. Fitra, if you're ready, you can cast your PPT. Oh, we can't hear you though.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Do you want us to project the PPT, or do you want to share it?
Okay, I want to share it with
Okay.
another.
Thank you. Despite of the heavy rain in your location,
Yes. Great.
the typhoon is very timely. So go ahead. You have the floor whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay, how about this? Everyone can see my presentation?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. I thought that my screen is freezing right now. Anyone can?
Yeah, I think
Are
we
you
can see
hearing me?
your. Yes, we can hear you well, and we can also see your PPT up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because in my screen is freezing. Okay, I'm so
see.
sorry. Well, hello everyone. I was starting my presentation. Greeting for all participants on this virtual meeting, and then all of us. I'm Fitra Rashidi, a youth member of Flower Aceh. In today's presentation, I would like to talk about youth participation for peace building and development in Aceh. The role of CSO and youth movement for Goal 16, Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Okay, first of all, I would like to talk about history of Aceh. The Aceh have a conflict of Free Aceh Movement, or GAM, began on December 4th, 1676. And facing this movement, the government of Indonesia responded by carrying out intelligence operation in Aceh by implementing Aceh as military operations military operation area, or DOM. The application of DOM in Aceh result in suffering for the Aceh's people because of the war. The Aceh conflict is complex historical issues with a deep-seated causes and profound consequence. The historical root of Aceh resistance and its unique cultural heritage remain a testament to the resilience of its people and the complexity of Indonesia's story. During the conflict, there were many human rights violence, especially among marginalized groups, including women who has experienced GBV. And then, based on according to a report by Human Rights Concern Forum, there are many number of people killed, and the case missing persons, and then case of torture, rape, and many more. And then after the tsunami disaster in Aceh in 2004, it became a point of peace agreement between the Aceh government and Indonesia. While peace agreement was reached in 2005, broke the end decade of violence and officially ending the armored conflict. The deep-rooted trauma endured by the Aceh's populace, it's remain pebble. Individuals from all walks of life in our many people in Aceh, including former combatant and civilians, carry out emotional scars and psychological wounds. The legacy of this trauma can be seen in ongoing struggle with our mental health issues and interpersonal conflict and difficulties in rebuilding their life, especially in Aceh. And then, however, even after the conflict ended with the peace agreement, there are several problems because the legacy of Aceh conflicts, such as the Aceh conflict, has had lasting impact on the community. Its impact are still felt until this day. The legacy of conflict Aceh has had a profound impact on the Acehnese community and Indonesia as a whole. The impact of the conflict also felt heavily on the youth community, and one of the concerning consequences was the emerge of radical narrative among the young generations. The conflict in Aceh, which lasted for nearly 3 decades, left deep scars on the mind of Acehnese youth who grow up in the environment marked by violence, instability, and loss. This environment provided fertile ground for the development and propagation of radical ideologies. And then another problem of that our found from the legacy of pro-Aceh conflict, its existence of extremism in the youth movement. It's like radical extreme in youth movement, radical extreme view or opinion, and then often involving a willingness to use or endorse violence to achieve specifically goals. They have still used this narrative. And then there are many black campaigns in the youth movement. It's are candlelightness or malicious effort aimed at distracting individuals, groups, or idea through the spread of false informations, propaganda, or other deceptive tactics. And then it can disrupt trust, unity, and the overall mission of the movement, potentially leading to divisions and conflict. And then there's many structural problem. On the next point is there are some problem structure such as the impact of the prolonged and unresolved of Aceh conflict. Aceh is an area of Islamic law, Sharia, and then understanding related to religion has not yet been completely deeply, but has already begun with the application of law and Sharia. And then about radical education, it's preferred to forum or individual education institutions or individual who express their feeling or personal view that can give rise up to the bad ideology or radical ideologies that threaten the unity. But in another hand, there is no specific platform in Aceh to discuss about peace, and then the narrative of peace and unity has no place to spread out. So there's a that we are find. And then there's a mental model, especially for the youth community. There are such as the doubt about the capacity of youth community. Why our young people talk about human rights? Where are group of and then there are group of young people who are involved in or are part the extremism. Even they choose to join the terrorism group. It's like contribute of his faith for the name of the his religions. And then we are find that and based on the report, the young community in Aceh does not think that the movement they are carrying out is part of their contribution to human rights. So however, with the number in this my screen are 53% of the total population in Indonesia, that made us think to actually talking about celebrating human rights and appreciating human rights should start with us as a young generations. This is what made us start thinking about interference through youth movement and participation initiative by Youth ID. And then as a youth member of Lower Aceh. In Aceh, we are present with a youth movement in form of foundations called that are called Youth ID, which is directly under my coordinations as a my sound. It sounds great because this screen say that my internet is low. Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah, under my coordinations, and then former since 2018, Youth ID intervenes in youth groups or communities. Youth ID is a foundation for by young generations, that especially like me and my friends and another young leader in Aceh, and we are advocating for the fulfillment of young generation right, youth right, and maximizing the active participation of young people. And as a firm commitment to what we fight for, we ensure that in Youth ID internal regulations that we are uphold three values in our in internal regulations, such as democracy, no discriminations, and gender equality. According to that, we are carrying out a various program and advocacy with many CSO, and then especially with Lower Aceh and youth community in effort for peace building and development in Aceh, using the SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals approach by engaging with local youth communities to contribute effectively to peace building efforts. And then and if we are talk about a sustainable development goals point, okay. Okay, my device is lag out. The SDGs 16 approach provide a powerful framework for promoting peace, justice, and
Recording in progress.
Okay, and if we are talking about
Rich, are you there? I think we lost him.
okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I'm
go
so
ahead.
sorry. Okay. Okay, and I will continue my presentations. And if you are talk about a sustainable development goals point, the SDGs 16 points approach provide a powerful framework for promoting peace, justice, and community engagement to create a more peaceful, prosperous, and lasting future. Whereas women and youth, alongside civil society, lead the way to better community and a brighter future, while also preventing the possibility of conflict from returning in Aceh. And this is Kanduri Damai, the one of the main inclusive program that support diversity and peace in Aceh. Kanduri Damai that integrate cultural heritage advocacy and peace building. It serves as a conduit for advocating human rights, diversity, peaceful narrative, conflict reconciliation, and many more, thereby contributing to the holistic development of Aceh. Kanduri Damai Kanduri is part of Aceh culture. It's a gathering festival but on these programs, on these program missions, it's to transform a cultural celebrations into an advocacy tools for social change by adopting an intersectionality approach. In this Kanduri Damai, celebrate this diversity by encourage youth, from different background, many perspective. Together we are share their story and perspective through the cultural exchange, storytelling, and artistic expressions. And the program fostered an application for the richness of Aceh culture and the importance of diversity in building a vibrant and inclusivity and inclusive society. And then the role of CSO and youth movement that I say that especially for Aceh play crucial roles in bridging the gap between the government and young people and then the community. They can facilitate CSO can facilitate dialogue, provide resource, create space for young people to get involved in peace building and development initiative that aim to promote peace by promoting dialogue, human right by ensuring equitable participations of all inclusions, by engaging all segments of society, and empowering women-led community by emphasizing gender equality by supporting active role for the woman. And then this is additionally about promoting inclusivity in Aceh with balancing Islamic law and cultural norms. Promoting inclusivity in Aceh while respecting the implementations of Islamic law is a complex and delicate challenge. It's require a multi-phase approach that includes educations, community engagement, legal reforms, economic empowerment, and this one of this forum, international engagement, is essential to recognize that inclusivity and Islamic values are not inherently contradictory, but can be mutually reinforcing. And by taking this step, Aceh can work toward a more inclusive society that respects its cultural and legal norm while ensuring the right and dignity of all its citizens. In conclusions, the legacy of conflict Aceh continues to influence local politics and identity of Aceh, and making it an important part of Aceh, past and present, with ongoing effort needed to maintain the peace and address its lasting effect. Youth, it's one of the main part in history. Youth participation in peace and development process, shedding light on Aceh conflict in the past, and then youth ID participation play a central role in the development and peace process. And in the other hand, a significant of the role of CSO, such as Flower Aceh and many CSO, that in Aceh literally play a crucial role to bridging the gap between the government, young people, and the community. And then with the SDG 16 point approach provided a powerful framework for promoting peace, justice, and community engagement to create a more peaceful and many possibility of conflict can returning. That's all for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fitra.
you.
You did a good job, despite of the current condition at the moment. In a nutshell, Fitra from Indonesia have spoken about the participation of youth in a conflicted society, particularly in their region where there are currently insurgencies, political insurgencies at the moment, where it meant to overthrow the current government. he is involved with different organizations, youth organizations, helping rebuilding their community because of these insurgencies. Now we're moving on to the comments of our of the mentors. We'll start off with our presenter from the mentor from Indonesia while we have her on the line, because we might lose her anytime soon because of the bad weather. So Ms. Riswati is from Indonesia, who is the director of Flower Aceh, which is an NGO in the area. Will be followed by my right, Professor Bernard Carganilla, UP professor, and then lastly we'll have Professor Wanapa from Thailand. Sister Risi, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. We are dying to hear your comment.
Thank you very much. Sorry, in Aceh we cut the light, yeah. Just a moment because my Zoom connecting is lost. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Good afternoon, good noon, and afternoon. I'm Riris from Flower Aceh. Firstly, I really appreciate with this forum. It's really important for sharing knowledge between youth generation with women and community in across the country and also across the generation. What we feel that when youth go together with us to fight the problem in Aceh, we feel that youth group have a big role in facing peace through their strategic role, pioneer and mobilizing peace in the community. They have a high capacity to use digital platform, and they have good networking across the province, across the country, and by their knowledge and skill, they can improving the information about peace issue in Aceh. Flower Aceh really helpful by joining youth with us with two collective action, collective campaign on peace issue in Aceh. When we make collective action in Kenduri Damai, we feel that it is be the good space for youth and women and community to know well, to understand well about the peace building in Aceh. And the generation remember the youth generation also by this activity. They know well about the culture of mutual cooperation and local wisdom at the village level. And it is important because a lot of youth, they forget about the history about peace or conflict history in village. It's like in Aceh, not all youth understand about the history conflict in Aceh. And by collective action, by working together as we do with youth generation, it will be joint learning process between us. We accept the improved information skill from the youth, and youth also can learning by our our experience in community. And the other is that I think youth participation also really important to make sure the sorry, to make sure our movement province, it is to go to the rights, yeah, because youth have a good voice reflection by their experience, and they will get they will need the development in the country, development in the province in Aceh, for the example, it will be reflected by their experience, their need, their expectation, and their reflection. That's why I really appreciate with the youth participation. Like youth ID, this is very helpful for our movement, women movement in Aceh, because youth ID make the peace issue, make the campaign of women issue in Aceh to be opened, to be knowledgement to all person in not only in Aceh but also in national level or international. I think that's all. Thank you very much, sister and brother. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Sister Reese. Thank you very much. Now we're moving on to Professor Bernard. We have a PPT for Professor Bernard. Can we put it up?
The Philippine delegation thanks and congratulates the sponsors and organizers of Women Rights and Peace 2023 Asia Youth Forum. Madamong salamat. We also thank the audience for sharing your Sunday afternoon here in East Asia. Marla Ima, Kay Frank, and I chose the topic because given that her course, Development Studies, has been instituted in the University of the Philippines, Manila, precisely to master phalanxes of technocrats who shall give life to the United Nations Development Framework when it first came out back in the middle of the 1970s. So allow me now to complement the presentation of the youngest delegate. The fundamental equality before the law of women and men is enshrined in the Philippine Constitution, particularly in Article 2, which makes it not only a principle of the Filipino people, but state policy. And yet, we have feminization of poverty. We've had our first female president in the aftermath of the EDSA People Power Revolution, and she also won the Ramon Magsaysay Award. And still, we have feminization of poverty. We had the second female president who, before that, was a senator responsible for many economic-related policies, and she was Secretary of Social Welfare and Vice President. And now, she is a Deputy Speaker of the Philippine House of Representatives. And still, we have feminization of poverty. We have a plethora of laws like the Women in Nation Building Act, and still we have feminization of poverty. We have more than a half a dozen Philippine senators who are women. One of them is a Marcos, another one is a Binay, and one of them was my student, Grace Po. And still we have feminization of poverty. We have a National Anti-Poverty Commission, whose lead convener is a colleague on the board of the Philippine Council of Management, and still, we have feminization of poverty. Now, the youngest delegate here gave a picture of rural poverty. Allow me to share the results of a survey to give you a picture of urban poverty. What does feminization of poverty really tastes like? And this is the result of a survey. The cheapest food, viand, ulam, that you can buy in an urban market is a hot dog, 10 pesos. It's about a nickel. It's not tender juicy, it's branded hot dog. You don't even know what it contains. 10 pesos. That will be the meal of a typical Filipino nuclear family, which means 5 members, a father, a mother, 3 children. And the father is the head of the family. He has a job. But they're still too poor to even cook that hot dog. And since Filipinos do not want to eat their food cold, it will have to be heated by running that hot dog across candlelight. And at the dinner table, the father will get one bite of the hot dog. He eats rice. It's passed on to the mother, who will not take a bite, pass on to child and then child. And then it goes back, whatever is left goes back to the father, who takes another bite because he's the breadwinner. The mother passes it on, child, bite, bite. Third round, the father takes another bite, child, and only then will the mother have one bite. That is feminization of poverty in the urban area. Of course, we understand the policy process works, the development process works. But since this is public administration, it's muddling through. We can only satisfies, meaning to say satisfaction will suffice. So, the struggle is really a multi-generational struggle. Even if we refer to our past, it does not spare the children now from feminization of poverty. So we can easily put out our rage, but the struggle is to fulfill the basic needs. Next. And so, even if we are state-centric, the government has to be part of the solution. But it's really in society. The whole of society approach must be taken, not just the whole of government approach, in order to make a dent on the feminization of poverty. So all of this is part of that process. It is part of the political and economic struggle. So, barangay captains who are village chairmen, as part of their work, with or without an election, and mayors, they provide porridge, lugaw, every Saturday or every other Saturday, or at least one Saturday every month. It may not be revolutionary, but you cannot skip that because of the example of poverties that we have both provided. So it's an essential part of the struggle. And there are so many laws, so many initiatives. The totality of it will, of course, still have an effect. But in the meantime, remember that hot dog which cost 1 nickel. And this was before the pandemic. And that is the picture of feminization of poverty in the Philippines of Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Bernard. We're moving on to the last commenter, Professor Wana.
Thank you. I feel very special because I'm the last one, who take the microphone, and everybody is dying to go out. Anyhow, I and we would like to express our appreciation for us to be here today and for Pornpawi to tell her story. You might notice that Pornpawi's presentation is quite different from other presentations because she didn't focus on peace per se, but she focused more on a woman's right, which is a big deal for Thailand, and I think it's especially for countries in Asia, in East Asia, in Southeast Asia. We still face the same root cause problem as we can recall the morning sessions activity. There are certain things that has not been changed for centuries, which is the patriarchal society. And to tell you the sad truth about Thailand, we have been working industrially on the gender equality. But the latest number of the UN SCAP show that Thailand did not progress, and actually we stepped backward in terms of gender equality. It's really bad. It's very sad for me. When we decide what topic to be chosen for presentation here, I discussed with Pornpawi, and I saw one of the problem that Thai youth have been facing, which is the lack of opportunity, especially for young girls, for young graduates. I live in Chiang Mai city, which is the second largest city in Chiang Mai. But Pornpawi, as recently graduate, she cannot find a decent work with enough pay rate in Chiang Mai or in anywhere else. That is one of the reasons that she has to move back home. And of course, because of the COVID pandemic as well. And when she's home, she noticed something that is very disturbing, which is the situation regarding women in during the COVID era. Pornpawi live in poor district. It's poor, P-U-A, poor, but it sounds like poor. That means no money. It's poor district. It's far. It's like 12 something hours by bus from Chiang Mai city. It's really far. And in Thailand, we have this myth, this belief that people who live in a agricultural society, who live with nature, they will be fine. They don't need money to, to live by. They can just like pick vegetable from the fence, and they raise chicken and pig, and they grow their own rice, and they will be fine. There's no need to help them in any way. And then Pornpawi, and I asked Pornpawi, is that so? Do you raise chicken and pig at your house? And he said, no, that's like 1,000 years ago already. But there's no Thai policy that target women, especially women in rural area. There's only one policy, one size fit all policy. That is no mention about gender or gender inequality. You don't have to mention gender mainstreaming because Thailand doesn't have that concept. Gender mainstreaming, what's that gender mainstreaming? So the government has this policy of lockdown, and they believe that, oh, okay, you have vegetable in the, in front of your lawn, and you raise your own chicken, so you will be fine. You have eggs and everything, and then they have this policy of giving out money, but you have to use your smartphone, to be able to use that program. But for harmony, they don't even have smartphone. They can't read, they can't write, and they can't use smartphone. So that's program create a new monster. That is some people in the area that take, who has the phone and take their money. So what we want to say today is that the situation regarding gender inequality is still present, not just in Thailand. If you listen to Mala's presentation and to other presentation, you can feel that, and I'm sure that you can experience this by yourself as well, that gender inequality is still present, and we need to do something about it. And you cannot have peace, perpetual peace, when a certain group, half of the population, is still facing inequality in life. And our younger generation, like Pornpawi and, her junior, I hope, I'm approaching retirement soon enough. And I hope that like Pornpawi and my next generation students and follower, they will have a better life. But that won't happen if there's not, there's no people like you guys, like us, to make a change for the society. So thank you very much. And especially thank you to representative from Timor-Leste, from Aceh, and from Cambodia. Those are the most difficult area in Southeast Asia, and they have to face atrocity, and they can come back very strong. I salute you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Wanapa. So that's how we're wrapping up our presentations. We have a few minutes to give the floor for their questions. If we have any questions or comments, that will be appreciated. Yes, go ahead. Hang on.
Thank you for the presenter that present astonishing the presentation. But I'm interested in Marla presentation about the condition about in Philippines. But can you tell me or explain about the fiscal policy in that Philippine government do to support women or maybe gender equality in labor market?
In the Philippines, we have this thing called Pantawid Familia, and it's sort of like a conditional cash transfer in which the government provides you with subsidies or money to help you in life, but you have to comply to certain things. So say, for example, you want to you want to help educate your child, the government will give you money continuously if your child sort of like fulfills that requirement. So yes.
Do we have any other question? From the chat, do we have anything from the chat? From the Zoom chat? Oh, sure, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Yusra. I'm an international student in Korea, and my question is also for Marilla. So it's more of a comment rather than a question, but I listened to your presentation, and while keeping in mind the perspective of my country, I'm from Algeria, and I noticed a lot of similarities despite how far these two countries are from each other. And I was also wondering, how effective would you think that grassroots approaches would be in dealing with the, what is it called, the double burden like phenomenon? Because we also have certain laws that are supposed to help women, but because of how deeply rooted societal values are that the house responsibilities are all for the women, those implementations or laws never are truly effective at the end of the day. Yeah, thank you.
So I definitely do think grassroots organizations have a huge role to play in, fighting poverty in communities, because they're the ones who are actually immersed in the area. They're the ones who know the struggles, who knows what's happening, especially in a country like the Philippines, which is, it's an archipelago. Like, there are different islands, different communities. They have different religions, different cultures because of that distance. And, compounded by like the fact that we also have like poor access to transportation, which kind of like makes it hard to find opportunities because everything is centralized in one urban area, and you cannot access those kind of opportunities in more remote places like the Visayas or the other islands. So yeah, I definitely do think that grassroots organizations have such a huge role to play, but it will also take, a long time for that to manifest. So,
if I may add, 100% effective, but it will take 100 years. Because worse than the landlord, worse than the profiteer, you have bureaucrats who will siphon the resources. So until those parasites are eradicated, it will take a long time.
Thank you, Marla and Professor Bernard. Professor Sumo, do we have anything? Oh, okay, Professor Zhang. Is that for the Philippine team again?
No, I'm sorry. I mean, I heard. Oh, I mean, the people. I like people that they are disappointed that there's gonna be another comment. When we are all eager to go already. Just please bear with me 1-2 minutes. I will try to make it short. I have a comment and also one question. And the comment goes like this, because I mean, I'm sorry I came in late. I just heard a little bit of what the presenters talk about. And I feel a little bit, both disappointed and sad, listening to the presentations, because, obviously, like, in the Philippines, Bernard Kaganila mentioned, that women have always been, part of the power in the Philippines. They were in power, they were presidents, they were congresswomen and senators, but still you have, issues, affecting women that have not been resolved. So I was just wondering why that happened. At the same time, don't reach for your microphone yet. I'm not done yet. And at the same time, I was listening to the presenter from Aceh, Petra, is it, talking about youth movements and fighting, advocating for peace and justice and all those things. And I am even more disappointed because I know that, I was working in Aceh for many years, 25 years ago. I was part of the, civil rights movement in Aceh. And those people, working then as youth activists are now in power in Aceh. You are talking about, people who used to work as human rights advocates and, peace building advocates and all those things. They are your, provincial congressmen and women and politicians. And so Aceh, they signed the peace agreement in 2005. Now it's 18 years. And then as we, we progress over the years, a lot of those activists now have been playing different roles, as leaders, as politicians. And the issues are still there, so that makes you wonder, what happened, to those idealism, to those desires, to change things. Back then, when they were in a difficult situation under the Indonesian government, rule, when they are in power, it seems like, they are doing the same thing as they were fighting, for many years ago. And at the same time, issues of poverty is also rife in Aceh. The same thing, as in Thailand, in the Philippines, despite so many years of being peaceful in Aceh, or so-called peaceful, development is still lacking. People are still poor. And people, especially those in the rural areas, are saying that, what was that all about? We fought so hard so many years ago, but where's the peace dividends? We are not enjoying what we were supposed to get, after all our fights. So a lot of question marks, I don't have time to go further, but because this is a women's and youth forum, maybe, just as a reminder, to all of us, when we meet again, maybe 20-25 years from now, and, you are a little bit older, I'm very much older at that time, please check, that your desires are still there, and to think that, what you have done over the past 20 years and how things have changed because of the things that we have been doing, and if not, why are we not doing enough? So I would just suggest, and this is my last comment, keep your fires alight, and then even if you are in, not even when you are in a different and better position in the future, please remember the struggles, that you have gone through over these years. And please always make reflection and checks to see, that we have been doing the right and proper thing. So that's just my comment. But my question, if it's possible to give a question, I'm sorry. I thought you don't give me the microphone. So No, I don't know whether Petra. Oh, yeah, is there? You know, the Achenese mentor is there. I want to ask, because it has not been mentioned. I want to ask about the situation of women in Aceh. You know, women in Aceh, especially, you know, with the introduction of the Sharia law, I heard a lot of complaints, you know, from the women that the laws are not being fair, you know, to the women in terms of, you know, their priorities and their rights to move. And a lot of the Sharia law are actually suppressing the women in Aceh. Can I get a comment from our Achenese presenters? Thank you very much, and congratulations to all for your presentations.
Thank you, Professor Zam. Professor Bernal would want to say something
Yeah,
short.
very quickly. Zam, you're married to a Filipina, so you know how strong-willed Filipinas are. So it is less a question of gender, but class. Because it's a very specific form of patriarchy that exists in a very specific form of capitalism, speaking as far as the Philippines is concerned. So, but progress is possible because Lola Rosa Henson, the first Filipino to identify herself as a comfort woman, just to link with the previous session, after 20 years as a proletariat, because he was literally an industrial worker, rose to the lowest level of management. So individual progress is possible, but it took her 20 years, setting aside the fact that she was a comfort woman.
Thank you, Professor Bernard. Just quickly, about 1 minute, Ms. Riris, if you are still there. So there was a question posted by Professor Bernard, Professor Zam earlier regarding the status of women in Aceh at the.
Okay, thank you, brother. I want to respond what Professor said, that the opinion about the Aceh situation is, I agree with that opinion, because even we have tried to change the situation by the policies, by the political will, but we still face a lot of obstacle, yeah. And what we done in Aceh is we make critical perspective to the woman. Woman will be aware, yeah, with the human right, what woman human right, and then they will be can go with their self to do everything, because it's very important, because a lot of time women have not voice, cannot speak, cannot have the good right, yeah, in Aceh. According to the professor say about the policies in Aceh, it's about kanun jinayah. We say kanun jinayah because this is Islamic law, but when this is implementation, the interpretation then and implementation, this is not really give woman right, yeah, because the woman not really protected by this law, especially about the law, the statuta about the sexual arrangement, because this is still ambigu, and then when this is implementation, it is make woman victim lost the right, her right, yeah. That's why we still together with woman movement in Aceh to challenge this, to revise some pasal, what we say pasal, to revise redaction some pasal in kanun jinayah, become woman and child perspective, yeah, become woman and child perspective, especially by victim, sexual victim, because some words still not really protective for woman victim and child victim, also sexual victim. The other what we flower done with Youth ID, we also make make networking with government with good perspective to go together to revise this law. And then now the law on process revisi, but we still waiting for finally. This is what I can inform. I think Fitra can addition. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Risi. So we are approaching the sad part of this conference. I understand you guys would have more questions, but we'll have to call it a day. We're wrapping up. Thank you very much. A round of your warmest applause to all of our presenters today and all our mentors, please.